From the producers of This Is Chuck Darwin, we're pleased to present This is Dr. Jonathan Marks, Tales of a Marxist. Oh, no, not that one. Not that one either. Yep, that's the guy. That's the only Marxist who matters. But just who is Dr. John Marks?
Oh, John. Who is John Marks? Well,
an incredible, enthusiastic supporter of the life of discovery.
He's funny.
A wonderful mentor and friend.
He's thoughtful. He's well-read. He's a good writer.
John is one of a kind.
Also the snarkiest, funniest, and probably one of the best well-read people I've ever met.
He's a good friend.
Based on his book, Tales of Ex-Apes, we know John's not an ape, though we're not entirely sure he's not Bigfoot. Oh, wow. Okay, he might be Bigfoot. Oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't ready for this. He's also a hell of a singer.
So tell me, why should it be true that I get a kick out of you?
My name is John Marks, and I'm an entirely law-abiding citizen.
John came into the world like he'll go out, bald and beautiful. He was born a child in the Bronx. He ran the mean streets of New York City with an iron fist. Nobody knows just how many bodies were buried in his sandbox. In 1959, the Marx family moved to Puerto Rico, where John worked undercover for the CIA for a few years. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, however, the family moved back stateside. John's grandmother instilled in him his love of musicals, and she arranged for his first TV appearance on the Sandy Becker Show. There he performed his favorite soliloquy, Richard III's "Now is the winter of our discontent." Can you believe he still fits in that suit? You shouldn't, because he can't. John went on to attend the prestigious Horace Mann High School in New York City. There his eyebrows and love of science blossomed. Graduating in 1971, John won the lottery and didn't have to go to Vietnam. John went off to Baltimore to study at Johns Hopkins and experimented with a various slew of looks. This one, well, let's just keep moving. For graduate school, John giddy up to Tucson, where he studied genetics at the University of Arizona. To assimilate to this rough-and-tumble frontier town, John embraced his inner rhinestone cowboy. Is that an ascot or a bandana? Well, there, John fell in with a ragtag crew of archaeologists who were just starting the Garbage Project with Bill Rathje. The Garbage Project also had a softball team, and they desperately needed a shortstop, which, coincidentally, was John's natural position. According to eyewitness and colleague Susan McCombie, he was fast and had a good throw to first. But just who was the culprit who roped him into this filthy mess?
Since I became a participant in Rathje's Garbage Project, I think I was an influence to get John to come along and play on the Garbage Project softball team.
After finishing his master's in genetics, John quickly moved to the anthropology department at the University of Arizona. John went on to study chimpanzee chromosomes for his dissertation. John became so cool, even members of his cohort dressed as him for Halloween. Oh, I think she really nailed the brows. He was beloved by many in the department, except one. Let's just call her Mary Ann Murfberger. Dr. Murfberger had a lot of say in whether or not John graduated, and so a struggle commenced. And our producers tracked down this artifact. Here is a 1983 copy of the Chichimeca graduate newspaper. It was the birth of the new Marxist movement. It was the fight to get John his Ph.D. They even were peddling merch, like mud flaps, T-shirts, license plates. These Marxists were smart. They used the hate against John to fundraise for a big party. They placed 3 cups in the anthro department. One said save John, the other dump John, the last kill John. It was 10 cents a vote, and folks, they were able to fund a party with what they made. This new brand of Marxism has since spread across the United States and has roots in St. Louis, New York, and Madison, Wisconsin. John also has fans in higher places.
Theologians have always asked if I was a Marxist, and I'm like, dude, I'm a John Marxist. All right, fuck you, I thought it was funny, crucify me.
After receiving his Ph.D., John spent 3 years as a postdoc in the genetics department at UC Davis. Thanks to a killer recommendation, John landed an interview at Yale with primatologist Allison Richard. He nailed it and got the job. John's decade at Yale was tumultuous. He really struggled to develop a fashion sense. He also developed an interest in social processes and the roles of science, and he began to speak out against scientific racism and colonialism in physical anthropology, and scientific fraud at Yale. Shortly before leaving Yale, he met Peter, and they got married and moved to Berkeley. At Berkeley, John immersed himself in science studies, though on his first week on the Berkeley scene, John found himself in some hot water.
The Daily Californian, the UC Berkeley newspaper, this is from September 5th, 1997, and you made the front page because apparently you pissed off a student who complained and went higher up. Professor, you probably pissed off a few students, and probably students that needed to be pissed off, so. Professor rebuked for remarks. Comments about Diana caused students to complain. The students' objections included an accusation that Marx made insensitive comments about the death of Princess Diana, and also that he used excessive foul language in his Anthropology 114 lectures. For example, the student said Marx called 17th century British scientist Isaac Newton an asshole. The media, Marx said in the lecture, is disproportionately emphasizing the fact that Diana's children will grow up without a mother. He said that because the princess's children went to boarding school, they hardly ever saw her when she was alive.
While at Berkeley, John was particularly tickled to be able to hang out with Dr. Sherry Washburn, and to have inherited Washburn's intro course at Berkeley to teach, after getting fired from Berkeley. And so John and Peter were on the move again, this time to Charlotte, North Carolina. John and Peter arrived in 2000 and were finally able to settle down. At UNC Charlotte, John's career flourished. His book, What It Means to Be 98% Chimpanzee, won awards, and having finally tasted success, he wrote several others, like Why I'm Not a Scientist, perhaps the worst titled book in the field of science studies. John also wrote The Alternative Introduction to Biological Anthropology, Is Science Racist?, Tales of Ex-Apes, cover art by the late, great Michelle Besançon, and Why Are There Still Creationists? And who could forget Understanding Human Diversity? John has also won a First Citizens Bank Scholars Medal and marched as University Marshal in 2012. As for TV appearances, John is no slouch. That Sandy Becker Show appearance was just the tip of the iceberg. There was the Jim Ferguson Show in the early 80s. Check out those cowboy boots. And many other appearances for UNC Charlotte. And how could we eliminate his crappy TEDx talk entitled, You Are Not an Ape, Now Put Down That Turd and Get Back to Work? Folks, it's my number 2 favorite TED Talk. John's hilarious and no-nonsense approach to, well, pretty much everything has gained him many fans, admirers, and friends.
John Marks like this! I win!
Yay, John Marks! Some foes, but haters gonna hate. And now that John Marks is moving into retirement, these friends have some thoughts. How has John been an inspiration?
Okay, set the scene.
So I read your work before I met you. And so when I did finally meet you in 2011 or so, I was really nervous.
Oh my gosh. I think I met John Marks at the 1988 AAPA meetings, and I didn't know him at all. And he offered me a cert, just like handed me one. And I thought that was hilarious because, you know, it implies that I had bad breath, or I don't know if he was just being social, but I took it.
But I remember becoming fast friends. Then I interviewed you in 2013, and we really bonded over our love of comedy, especially Mel Brooks.
So one of the ways I got to know you is somehow we ended up together giving Ashley Montague his Darwin Award. We took Ashley out to lunch. We took a picture with him for posterity's sake, and we had a good time.
Retirement? What the fuck? How can it be that you're retiring?
I find it hard to believe that you'll actually retire, but
I've known John Marks since about 1989 when he taught me anthropology at Yale.
I first met John in 2015. So I'd met with my undergraduate mentor, Linda Wolf, and she said, you're going to go to UNC Charlotte. You don't have a choice. You're going to work with Jonathan Marks because he, quote, knows everyone, and that'll make your life much easier.
John and I have known each other for over 50 years.
I'm so grateful for our almost 46 years of friendship. That number seems wrong, but it's not.
We met when we were 18. I was a University of Arizona freshman, and John was spending his junior year abroad from Johns Hopkins.
And then we ended up talking. We both gave talks at those meetings. And then we ended up going out for drinks or lunch. And then as it turned into drinks, we spent hours talking. And that kind of became our tradition then at the meetings to hang out together.
I was absolutely the typical Yale freshman who was trying my best, took John's class.
There was a class that sounded like a lot of fun, that you got to play with fake skulls and learn about cute monkeys, and the professor was funny and irreverent and swore nonstop.
John chose to do his lecture on the anthropology of swear words. Coming from Southern Baptist land, I hadn't heard some of those words spoken out loud before. And here was a professor giving a whole talk on the anthropology of some of these words.
Needless to say, that professor was John Marks.
I enrolled, obviously.
I have so many great memories, from chatting on Saturdays at ASM to seeing Les Mis, Miss Saigon, and Phantom on Broadway when you were at Yale and I was visiting my great aunt back east.
We both were living in dorms. We met where the cafeteria was, and we played computer quiz in the basement of the Park Center. And generally, John won, but occasionally he let me win.
John as a mentor, not to be confused with a minotaur.
Not so many people can say that they developed PTSD with their advisor. It's usually from their advisor. But don't worry, John. In a few years, you probably won't remember anyway.
It's fair to say that John has probably inspired me more than any other mentor or colleague that I've had. Anytime I need advice, he is always there to give me the John Marks brand of advice that I tend to take, and it tends to serve me quite well.
Your ability to reach out a helping hand. I had no financial help, and I was looking at having to leave Yale. When you reached out and lent a helping hand and offered additional grant money to keep me working in your lab, which I so enjoyed, is a big reason why my degree has Yale on it and not, say, the University of Oklahoma, having to go back home.
We've known each other an awful long time, and I have to thank you for some of the best advice I got during my PhD many moons ago, which was the PhD is your calling card to polite scientific society. Very influential, and I've passed it on to many struggling PhD students since, so thank you for that.
He was the one who first got me started thinking about the relationship between science and religion. And here I am, a theology professor. So thanks for that, John.
I think the first word that comes to mind when I think of John is irreverent. And it's probably because it's said often about his writing. But actually, I think a better word to describe him would be compassionate. His approach to scholarship, certainly his approach to mentoring, leans heavily into that. Now, he certainly approaches it with the wit and humor that being irreverent requires, but it's coming from a place of compassion.
Part of my education and mentorship with John overlapped with the onset of COVID. And considering he was an undergrad during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, we really looked to him for answers.
You have been such a source of support and encouragement. You've always had my back, and anytime I came to a meeting, I would see you and I would feel at ease and at home.
What a wonderful mentor you've been to me, and how unfailingly generous you have been to me and to my family.
That all jokes aside, and all that being said, you were integral to my confidence, to my motivation into wanting to be an anthropologist, but also that I could be one.
We can't underplay how significant it is that John has shown us how to write and how to speak in ways that engage people, that draw them in, that are snarky, funny, a little bit absurd sometimes.
I think my favorite John Marks book is a more recent book Why are there still creationists? While it's not the book that's had the biggest scholarly impact on me, I think it is a book that is incredibly timely. It's even more relevant today than it was when it was published a few years ago.
You know, from my bookshelves, a few classics. This was signed by you to me in 1997. It's probably when we first met. I think that's when you got to Berkeley. To Katie McKinnon with best wishes, John Marks.
I got really interested in human diversity, and who else to really focus on and read up on was the young John Marks, who had written this amazing book called Human Biodiversity, kind of in his, I don't know, early 30s or something like that. Kind of really incredible that you did that, John. And you've continued to be just an amazing writer ever since.
I really thought his Human Biodiversity book was really, really good. And at a time before, people weren't talking about human diversity. I thought that was really interesting.
So that was 1997. And then we got to be friends. And then this is how you inscribed books later. This is the classic, What It Means to Be 98% Chimpanzee. To Katie McKinnon, scholar, colleague, babe. All the best, John Marks.
It's a great question to ask. What does it mean to be 98% chimpanzee?
The data, the analysis, the content, and the intent are incredibly robust, and the outcome is powerful.
He writes very, very quickly and prolifically, and to some degree, independent of what he's writing about, the fact that he spends a lot of time writing is inspiring. It makes me think that I can do it too.
And again, I hear all the time, we never see you and John Marks in the same room. Dude, we're not the same person, okay? Get over it. We're not. John Marks has published so many books. I've only used ghostwriters.
What is it like to witness a John Marks talk?
I learned a truly amazing amount of things.
His talks filled the room to standing room only. I mean, people would be standing in the doorway trying to get in because John was giving one of his, entertaining and pretty critical in the sense of critiquing other people's claims, one of his talks. And that was notable because most people at that stage of career don't command standing room only 15-minute meeting talk slot.
The so many different occasions when you told it how it is at AAPA meetings and made so many physical anthropologists squirm when they really needed to.
You will call folks out on their idiocies, their racisms, but you do it in such a funny way.
People listen to John because he's fun to listen to, and people listen to John because he's got a lot to contribute. And he's usually right.
You have one of the most incredible senses of humor I have ever come across, and I've so enjoyed it.
As everyone knows, John is really funny. Even if you don't want to give him the satisfaction of laughing at his jokes, it's really hard not to laugh.
2, I think, is the number of wildly inappropriate stories you've told in front of my children.
And even lots of his jokes are in bad taste. Like they're things that I would never say. I would never even think some of them. It's not the direction my humor goes. And I never want to reinforce his humor in that way, but sometimes you just can't not laugh.
Better grab your barbecue sauce. We're about to roast him.
Frankly, John, it's bananas that you're retiring.
John's getting to be so mellow, in his old age. He's mellowing out a lot. So, and I think that is apparent in his appearance as well as in his behavior.
The things that I also remember learning were the myriad of creative ways that one can use the word fuck. I think John uses it in the positive and the negative. Something can be fucking stupid and it can also be fucking amazing.
At the end of the day, even though I was saying how funny John is, I think I'm actually funnier than he is.
And I picked you up at your incredibly messy apartment in Yale. Thank God you have women around you to take care of you now because you really need it desperately.
It's really funny when John Marks says anything about my hair since he doesn't have much. But
and he also was the one who taught me why my pea smells when I eat asparagus. And I've thought of that many times over the years. So thank you very much for that, John.
And one of my favorite stories that I ever told was back when he was doing a postdoc at UC Davis. And he was sitting in on a class taught by Sarah Hrdy on primate evolution. And during this section of the course, she was talking about the evolution of the female reproductive tract in primates. And during this lesson, John raises his hand and he says, yeah, but like, what about the baculum? Humans don't have baculums. That's weird. She says, we'll get to it. Don't worry about it. The next week, Sarah Hrdy's continuing her lesson on the evolution of the female reproductive tract. And again, John raises his hand and he says, but yeah, what about the baculum? Humans don't have a baculum. That's really weird. To which Sarah turns to him and says, John, do you ever consider maybe you're the only man who doesn't have a baculum?
If John was a non-human primate, what would he be?
What kind of primate would John Marks be?
As a primate, what would it be? And what I want to say is it would be a primate with a baculum.
When I think of John actually as a primate, I think of him as a callitrichid. And I know it's strange. And it's not just because he has his little tufts of hair on the top of his head.
Well, I immediately want to say red-faced wakati, but let's not go there because that's not actually the kind of primate he'd be.
Callitrichids are really family oriented. And I don't know if, that's a side of him that not everybody knows.
Given all the range of primates out there, clearly John Marks is a human being.
Tips for retirement. You're retiring. As we're all thinking, what the actual fuck?
I think John has given a lot of thought to his retirement. And I think that he's right to retire before people want him to. I think that's always a better strategy.
I've been retired for about 10 years, and I still have on my docket around 15 papers that I'm engaged in writing. Maybe you'll be as stupid as I am in that way.
I think you should move to California now. We have better weather, better politics, and more theaters. You could all learn to surf.
I think that John is going to probably reinvent himself yet again. He's made enormous contributions to our profession. He can feel proud of those achievements. And, there are people who work in his area who will be reading his work for a long time to come.
A fond farewell.
So, John, I can honestly say I love you. I hope that we continue to stay in touch. And I'm going to smack you around if that's not true. Okay, you heard it from me.
Serious note, you have been one of the most remarkable and productive and inspirational scholars in our field, and we all love you, and that is true of me as well. And I want to say happy retirement.
Happy retirement. That is so exciting, and I'm happy for you.
I hope you have the most amazing retirement that you so richly deserve. Take care, my friend.
And I thought deeply about what I should say to congratulate you and to usher this next chapter of your life. And not because your recently authored letters of recommendation for me, and definitely not because you pay me to edit your Wikipedia page on a monthly basis.
I mean, I don't really want to say thank you to John because his retirement isn't going to have any impact on my friendship with John. I think if anything, he'll just be more available.
And it's definitely not because you send me a monthly retainer so you can send me videos and pictures of AI and say, is this AI? Because you're not sure if it's AI or not, and you do spend a lot of time on Facebook, so you're just trying to keep up with what's hip.
I will miss seeing the wonderful multiple choice questions that you write and post on Facebook, but I hope that retirement will be wonderful for you in so many other ways.
I wish you all the best. Have a fantastic retirement. Take care. Have a great time. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being a great friend.
Congratulations on an amazing, really, really impactful career. I wouldn't be able to think the way that I think or know the things that I know if it hadn't been for your brilliance and your writing. So congratulations.
I love you. Thank you very much for all of that. And have a wonderful retirement. I know you will, and you deserve it. So happy retirement, John.
So thanks and happy retirement.
I'm not saying thank you. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just going to say, well, good. Now you'll have more time to read my things and give me feedback and talk when I need to. And, it's all about being available.
You're one of a kind force, and we're also lucky to have known you and to be known by you. I wish you the best as life has to offer. Congratulations and good riddance.